We got one question from my guy elevated_Lewis on X, who asked, we got a question from my guy elevated_Lewis on X. He asked, what's the ideal trade package Minnesota can create to trade up into the top 5 to select a quarterback? Minnesota is going to have to at least give up the 2 first-round picks that they have in this year's draft. You have the 11th pick and you have the 23rd selection that you acquired recently in the trade with the Houston Texans. You're going to have to use that and maybe package that up with a 2025 first-round pick to move into the top 5 if you plan on drafting a quarterback. You may feel like that's too much for a guy like JJ McCarthy, Drake Maye, or Jayden Daniels, but remember, when the 49ers back in 21 traded up to 3 with the Miami Dolphins for Trey Lance, they gave up 3 firsts. In today's NFL, if you want to move up to draft a quarterback high, you got to give up a lot of first-round capital. Minnesota isn't going to be able to get any pick in the top 5 without at least having to shovel up 3 first-rounders, including the 2 that they have this year. And any team that would be dumb to not take the 2 first-round picks from this year's draft that Minnesota possesses, they're dumb. Like, Minnesota has 2 first-round picks, and they are really desperate to get a quarterback. They've been linked to JJ McCarthy one day. The next day you wake up, they love Drake Maye. Then the next day they are in love with Jayden Daniels. They just want to have the opportunity to walk away with one of the top quarterbacks in this year's draft. Any front office, general manager, front office VP should know the desperation that Minnesota is in. And there's an old expression that goes, desperate men do desperate things. To you, giving up 3 first-rounders for any quarterback to draft them possibly in the top 5 is too much. But when you're desperate, you're willing to do whatever it takes. Minnesota wanted to trade up for Anthony Richardson last year, but they weren't willing to pull the trigger on it. They aren't willing to pass up on another opportunity to get another potential franchise quarterback. When you lose Kirk Cousins, that was probably something that they didn't really see coming. I don't think they were expecting, or anybody expected, for Atlanta to give all of the money that they offered Kirk guaranteed coming off that injury. But if you believe, if you're Kevin O'Connell, that JJ McCarthy, Jayden Daniels, or Drake Maye, one of those guys you can work with, it's worth trading up for him. All right, Sam Darnold isn't that good. I don't think he's going to give you that much. You get a young QB in there with how good of an offensive mind Kevin O'Connell is and the good supporting cast they're going to have around there. There's going to be no reason why they shouldn't succeed unless Kevin O'Connell just isn't as good as an offensive mind as we think. But there's no way Minnesota gets the 3rd, 4th, or any pick in the top 5 without giving up 3 first-rounders. These teams know Minnesota's desire to get a QB, and they're going to use that leverage against them. There's also going to be other teams that may be looking to move up the trade for a quarterback. Let's say this. Let's say, hypothetically, Drake Maye is still on the board after the Commanders take Jayden Daniels at 2, and Caleb Williams goes number 1 to Chicago, as we expect. New England may want to trade down that 3. They may not be sold on the quarterbacks anymore. They may just want to take a different approach to building up their team first, then drafting the quarterback later, which is understandable. You have the opportunity to get Drake Maye, but you may have to give up 4 first-round picks for him, or 3 first-rounders and a potential 2nd, and maybe some additional compensation to compete with the Broncos, who may want to move up, and compete for that 3rd pick. If Drake Maye's on the board and New England's looking to trade down, you got to grab him. Drake Maye with Kevin O'Connell, Jay Jettis, TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison, Aaron Jones. Are you kidding me? That's a playoff team, in my opinion. You give a guy like Drake Maye, who's perceived as a boomer bust prospect, really toolsy guy that has all the potential in the world to be one of the best QBs in the game, but also could be a really big bust with how inconsistent his film was last year. A guy like Kevin O'Connell getting Drake Maye, they could potentially become Super Bowl contenders because he's the perfect guy for a dude that has, these kinds of boom or bust labels that Drake Maye has. Similar to Anthony Richardson. When he got drafted by Indianapolis and Shane Steichen, you knew it was going to work because Shane Steichen has a proven track record. He's a respected offensive mind in the league. Minnesota, you're not getting a top 5 selection from any team without forking over 3 first-rounders. 2 that you have this year and the next one that you got next year. That's the price that it takes when you're trying to draft a quarterback this year.